All right, y'all, welcome back to my shenanigans, my dog and pony show, this channel. Today we are reviewing the Morphe 35i Icy Fantasy palette. I got to play with this palette a few months ago, about 3 months ago, back in late March, early April. And the first time around, I did not have a great go-round with it. I had some feelings about this palette, girl. I was going through the gigs. I was upset. I was calling this palette every name in the book, girl. So we decided to give it a second chance because, I believe in giving things second chances and, I give my ex-boyfriends more chances than they probably should. But that's a different story for a different day. But sit back, relax, get a drink, and get ready for this review. Alright, y'all, we're going to go ahead and dive into the Morphe 35i Icy Fantasy palette. As mentioned before, I did try this, 3 months ago when COVID struck. And I had a really awful time with it, and I hated it. I had so many feelings about this palette. I just felt like it was the worst thing on the planet. And, I had seen, across, my social media timeline, other friends of mine that, either personally work for Morphe or own this palette. This is what she looks like. She does look a bit used. This is, my roommate's palette. So she's kind enough to let me borrow it. So we're going to go and give her a second chance, after kind of taking a more careful and strategic approach, looking at the color story. It's got your blues, your purples, pinks and oranges and green for some reason. I don't think a green when I see ice. Maybe when ice shines because it has that iridescent shine to it, but that's really about it. But anyways, so I did make sure to approach this with a very white base. Excuse me. Apparently I must be thirsty. Wanted to approach this as carefully as possible. So that way I could, pull this off as well as I know I can pull this off. So without further ado, we're going to go in with the only matte blue in the palette. I don't understand this is an Icy Fantasy palette and there's one matte blue. I feel like all these oranges and fucking reds and pinks could go and they could have more blues. I think it's weird. Well, I guess there's another blue. There's a cyan blue. So we're going to go ahead and use the cyan blue as a base, like as a transition color. Let me see where this goes. Kind of just tap her on. That's a little too green. Okay. Nope. We're going blind here, y'all. It's uncharted territory. Luckily, all we did was a chappity chap, so we good. So we're going to take the matte blue that I mentioned, which is like a pastel blue. So we're just going to use that as our transition color. Give it a very icy look and just see where this goes. And so far, okay, this is actually turning out how I had originally envisioned my first tryout with this palette. So far, it's coming out very blue. The way I'm, needing this to come out, I do have to dip and dip to get kind of the color story that I'm looking for with this eye makeup. And I don't really play with blues. I don't really play with, I'll play with greens, I'll play with pinks, yellows, oranges, reds. Anything but blue. I'll even play with purple, bitch. But blue? I normally don't fuck with blue. Which is weird, because a lot of drag queens really love blue eyeshadow for some godforsaken reason. I don't really know the answer to that question. So I cannot tell you. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just buff this into our crease. And it laid down rather nicely. I'll admit this is actually kind of nice. It's very, it looks sheer on camera, which I apologize. You know, obviously I'm painting, you know, and filming via cell phone, but it's not bad. It's very purpley. Let me turn up the brightness on my mirror so you guys can kind of get a better look at it. Okay, so it's very like blue. Obviously my brush is stained with purple, so it's kind of mixing in, and it's giving a little bit of the color story that I'm already looking for. So, as Bob Ross would put it, happy accidents. I am going to build a little bit more into the crease just to get a firm starting point. Because I like a very solid foundation to my eyeshadow. Especially when it comes to blending. I like to make sure that my first color has a strong starting point, so that way when I blend everything else, I'll get the beautiful gradient and, you know, look that I'm going for. So next we're gonna dip into the pastel purple that's in here. I say pastel because it is pastel. It very looks like, you know, the peeps that you would get at the dollar store or the drugstore around Easter. So I'm gonna do the same thing, just build, and build. It's not one thing that I'm like really enjoying too much with this palette. I don't like that the colors are not very pigmented. And I wonder if that's just because that's how tricky the formulas are for pastel shadows. That's kind of getting in there. I may have to dip into a secondary purple just to get a little bit more of the depth that I want with purple. So I'll just dip into a different eyeshadow, but that's fine. I wanted to try to use just this palette specifically to, you know, really pull what look I could get out of it. Because that's honestly what I firmly believe in. When I get a palette, even before I buy one, I want to make sure before I, you know, click place order and pay for it, I want to make sure that I can pull entire eye looks out of this palette alone. It only have to dip into other palettes for one shadow, like a black or something, you know, like just other, like one shadow for something else. But I don't really see a lot of looks. I see a lot of really, I'll call it basic beauty looks that could be used with this palette. And that's from a lot of the obvious orange and red and pink tones that are in here, and the shimmers. But that's honestly about it. So I do like where this is blended. This looks really nice. It's got a very icy, it looks almost lavender-y. Very lavender. So I'm gonna go ahead, my very disorganized self, I'm gonna go ahead and dig into some of my shadows from Warrior Painting Cosmetics. As y'all know, that I am on brand PR for the company, so I do receive a lot of different shadows and things from different palettes. So what they've sent me officially is a Z palette. I just traveled last weekend, so this yellow highlighter spilled everywhere, so I've not had the time to really clean it off yet. Sorry. Hashtag messy queen. I'm gonna go ahead and take my finger and just kind of wipe. There we go. I'm gonna take this purple that is from the pastel palette that they've launched, which is now just shifted to a made to order status. So if you do contact their Facebook page and you know, want to place an order for said pastel palette, it is made to order, and it takes a few weeks for them to you know, to make it. Honestly, for one person to sit there and make all these palettes for different people, it's a lot of man hours for one person. Okay, so that's giving me a little bit more depth. It looks almost the same, a little bit lighter maybe. Now it's got the more lavender look that I wanted. So I can actually shut this now and go back to the palette, the topic at hand, Miss 35i. So I'm going to go into this more grayscale purple that's right here. Looks very mauve. Mauve is the word that we're going to use. I'm not sure if it's correct, but horrible gay for not knowing colors. So we're going to use that to kind of just deepen the crease. Because I still want to have a very like ethereal look. I do have, there we go. I have a cute little brush I can use for my crease to kind of just lay product into a certain place. Normally I would use a pencil brush for this, but I also just want to build product in a specific area and just kind of concentrate it. And I don't remember where I got this brush. I think it was, you know, in, you know, the dawn of my drag career, I bought a lot of $1 brush sets off of Wish, and, you know, who knows where the fuck else, you know, from like China, probably Amazon. Still an Amazon queen. Going 10 years strong. Not with drag, but with Amazon. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe it off with a the cute little color changer. So now that I got this cute like setup here, I'm gonna go ahead and take some of that blue that we use in our transition and just lay it into here to kind of just diffuse everything, because I still want a demarcation of color of some kind, but I want it to look seamless and airbrushed. So I'm just gonna kind of like chap it in, because it also like what's the word, it blurs it out. There we go. There's a buff, there we go, buffs it out and makes it look like a more seamless blend. I'm gonna take purple onto my, what the fuck is this? I don't even know what Morphe number brush this is. The numbers have been like rubbed off, girl. The numbers have called off work. It's from their rose gold set that they had way back when, I think like 3 years ago. Okay. So now that I got that set up, I'm going to go ahead and we're gonna cut this crease, bitch. And grab my handy dandy. Don't cancel me, y'all. I have a dirty concealer brush, but it's only used on me, so I do eventually need to wash it, though. Gotta love being able to hear my dogs while I'm trying to film. And while I do use a bone white concealer, this is kind of doing the job that I need it to do. And I don't want to have any sort of like harsh, there's a word for it, harsh, harsh line in my crease. So I want like my crease to be defined, but I don't want it to be too, you know, dramatic. I want this to look really soft. So now that we've done that, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this same brush I used to define. I'm going to use it to place. Do we have a shimmer in here that I can use? Kind of do. All right. So there's like a white shimmer that I can use here. I'm going to throw glitter on top of it once this is all said and done. And that I'm going to go ahead and do off camera, just because it's a lengthy process and I've already been filming for a minute here. And that way you guys aren't kept waiting for like 40 minutes watching this video. Drag Queen's makeup is a wonderful car wreck and looks like a car wreck until it is done. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this concealer with this shadow, and then I'm going to go ahead and finish everything off camera. Okay. Looks very icy. I do really like this, and this shadow has a very blue shift to it while it's still white. It's iridescent, so it's giving the fantasy that I want. Okay, so I'm gonna go and go off camera and finish the rest of this face and get dressed and look accordingly for the end of the video. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a minute. Alright guys, we're back, and final thoughts on this palette. I think it's a very good palette. Maybe not something I would personally buy for myself, mostly because I have 900 eyeshadow palettes to go around. And it's a very big size palette. Like, it's my entire face, girl. And I have a big head. But, I think definitely the second time around, things turned out the way that I wanted to after I've chosen everything a little bit more strategically and was a little bit more careful about it. But again, I like the palette. I just wish the palette, since it's an icy fantasy palette, that it had more blues and purples to kind of tie in than just a couple of mattes and, you know, the rest be shimmers or pressed glitters and things like that. But, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye!